to Io Johnson, an Africa expert who joins me now from central London. Io, afternoon to you. The situation in Egypt clearly still very tense and the political process moving very slowly.
Very much so. I think the protesters have actually come in mass. They want to speak with a loud voice, and they want to keep up the momentum which they saw, especially outing Mubarak, and very much asking this time round for Mubarak and his inner circle to be put on trial, because they think that he has involved in a lot of corruption surrounding Egypt, and because he's been in that position for a very, very long time, they think that he's got to be held accountable for some of the wrongs in that country.
Io, many people believe that we didn't see the bloodshed in Egypt as we have since seen in other countries because of the way the military behaved during the uprising. Is the military there still in sympathy with the popular uprising?
Absolutely. Mubarak is the army is Mubarak. They're both one of the same. Nonetheless, the army did behave responsibly during the riots. They made sure they didn't engage with the protesters in any terrible fashion, as we saw the special police do otherwise. But what they can't do is change the wave of change that's going across North Africa and the Middle East. And when you do have a population which has a large percentage of that with a youthful, under the age of 30, highly educated, highly aware of what's happening in the world, using Twitter, internet, and so on and so forth, you cannot stop their aspirations for better for themselves and their family. And what people are asking is they want democracy, they want the reforms to happen far quicker. And if the administration currently, be it military one, is sluggish in doing so, I'm afraid the protesters would apply excessive pressure on them. And what we're seeing is just an example of that.
Yeah, clearly a tense situation there. I want to talk to you as well about Ivory Coast. Forces loyal to Laurent Gbagbo there, retaken ground, edging closer to where the rival presidential claimant is holed up. Clearly, politically, things have ground to a halt. But more particularly, I want to talk about the situation for people there, for residents in these cities. What are they doing? What is the situation like for them?
It's appalling, appalling, appalling. Really, residents are scared. A lot of them are actually in their homes. For the few who can actually brave it out, they've got to really make very quick to similar small destinations to buy a little bits of food and get back in home. We can't really escape the fact that large numbers of people have been displaced, families have been torn apart, and the impact on residents as a whole has been very, very severe. There's also an element of healthcare issues, malnutrition, diseases rife, and very much people don't even have access to electricity, and sooner or later will have problems with water, with cholera, and so on and so forth. So I think the entire government situation is breaking down as to how things have been governed in the past, and as long as this conflict continues in the fashion it has done, residents and especially women and children are going to be mostly affected.
Well, that's the next question, isn't it? Where does it end, and who needs to be... There were discussions earlier on this week. They seem to have fallen apart. Who needs to be taking more of a lead in this, do you think?
Well, I think the UN has got to take a pivotal role. The African Union has, in the past, have been seen to be weak, especially that through ECOWAS, in terms of some of the negotiations that they've had with both parties, with respective leaders that have come to their aid. But nonetheless, I think Mr. Gbagbo, who finds himself in a bunker surrounded by Ouattara forces, would need to be offered a carrot of some description, especially so in terms of how he can actually exit, be it a safe country, a third country, and of course, beyond that, you'll be looking at how the UN can actually investigate some of the crimes that have happened in that country, especially affecting women and family and children, as we've just mentioned, especially because we've got to find out who's to blame and how we can prevent this from happening in the future.
Io, thank you very much. Io Johnson there, an Africa expert. Thank you. On our website today, skynews.com, our Scotland correspondent looks at what Lockerbie police may have asked the Libyan defector. Coming up, drama in the Senate. We look at why it went down to the wire.